And we are live. I just got back from Chicago, just actually landed about an hour and 15 minutes ago. And I was extremely fortunate to be at the Chicago uh, Learning and Technology Conference. And it was phenomenal. It was an awesome time to reconnect with some old friends, meet some new folks, and uh, get out there and continue to work on sharing content as continue to build out the speaking aspect of the business. And for those of you who have been following me for a while, you know that 2024 is about making that shift, that transition into paid speaking. We're starting to see if we can wind down or de-emphasize a lot of the consulting and advising. I'll still do some of the fractional leadership stuff. That'll always be part of part of the stuff that I do. Um, just I want to get out there and do more of the speaking. I just get a lot of energy from it, and my energy is toned down a little bit because I'm coming off the um, just the energy suck of being in front of a group of people. So today, let's get into tactics. And I thought I had my dog with me, and then he disappeared. And he might come out during the middle of the discussion and join us here. I also, from a technology standpoint, I'm running into some issues with my microphone as far as the lav mic not working or not working as I had planned. And I've got some whiteboard markers. I've got a chance to use the whiteboard live in person today, and that's the other thing that is kind of cool about going along the speaker journey and trying to figure out how do you balance, how do you walk that line, toe the line between sharing information and conveying information, helping facilitate learning, the learning of the information, and then facilitate practical application of that information in the moment. And that's something I continue to work on. And in fact, I'm going to have somebody come on. Betty Danowitz is going to join me on one of these episodes sometime here pretty soon. We're going to record and talk a bit about how she's helped me on the speaking side. So let's talk about a specific tool, Tactical Tuesday. Tactical Tuesday. How do we get better at communication? And you've seen this tool on Whiteboard Wednesday before. I'm going to do it really quickly here in the background and ignore the stuff that's over my left shoulder. Um, First thing I want to know before getting involved in something where I'm going to be communicating, like even at an event, like the one that I was at today, who who is going to be in the room? Who's in the room? Um, what are their backgrounds? Uh, what where do they come from? Uh, Names, roles, titles, that kind of information, number of people, who's actually going to be in the room, who's going to be receiving the message. This can happen even one on one when we're having a conversation with someone directly. Based on what I understand about who they are, what are their objectives? What do I anticipate are their objectives? What do they want to accomplish? What are their objectives? What are the desired outcomes? Why are they investing time, energy, and resource in that conversation, in that session, in that reading that email? Who is it going to? Who's in the room? What are their objectives? What are our objectives? What are our objectives? What do I want to accomplish? So we'll work through specifically around the talk that I gave earlier today. Who we had learning and talent professionals, people who are focused on enabling people inside their organization to do better work, to learn things so that they can do things better, whether it's doing things for their customers, both internal and external. We had people who were focused on an active service, helping people get better at the things they want to get better at. So we had learning and development, talent and development people inside the room. Their objective, well, they wanted to learn, right? They wanted to get better. Specifically for this session, it was around How do you get to the yes? How do you get your internal proposals approved? They want to get better. They want to be able to figure out ways to get better funding to support the programs that they're looking to implement inside their organization, whether it's an emerging technology program or it's adding additional resources. How do we get the money to be able to support? So they wanted to, based on the description, see a way to simplify putting together proposals so that their internal, so that their funding gets approved. So their objective. What's my objective? My objective is that I make good on what we said in the description. Do we deliver on the learning objectives of the event? Do we does the work align with the expectations that we set? And so today it was about having a simple model, a simple framework, a square, a decision making framework, investment decision making framework, and using that to inform the internal proposals that we create. We went through that square. We talked a bit about the core questions that make up that thing. So I think we checked the box on that one. The second thing that we wanted to do, from my objective perspective, our objectives, uh, wanted to get into help people think a bit differently about how they ask questions and pull information rather than how they share information. So I ask that question that I typically do in front of groups. How many people here like to be sold to? And nobody's hands go up. And then it's how many people like to buy things. It's kind of funny. We don't like to be sold to, but we do like to buy things. There's this disconnect that happens, and ultimately, as you go through it, you figure the reason we don't like to be sold to is because it feels like that's something that people are doing to us. Where when we buy things, we're doing things, for ourselves. We're solving for a specific problem. And we can get into more of that detail in another one of these daily podcasts. See, I'm at the 7-minute mark. So, who's in the room? What are their objectives? What are our objectives? It could be, who am I sending the email to? What are their objectives? What's my objective? Could be, who am I presenting to? Who's there? What are their objectives? What are our objectives? And then what are the desired next steps? What do we want to happen? What are the calls to action? So for me, I had a couple of calls to action. One, as I'm really getting into the speaking thing, it's I want feedback. I need feedback. I need to learn. I need to learn quickly too. So used a tool called Talkadot, and really like this tool. I found out about it when I was at the NSA, National Speakers Association conference earlier this year. Larry Long Jr. turned me onto it, and it's just a great way to make it really simple for people to provide feedback. Was the session engaging? Would you like to see this speaker again? Would you recommend this speaker? Those kind of questions. So one thing, I wanted them to fill out the survey and give me some feedback so I could get some direct feedback. The other thing I wanted was to know that people were engaged enough that they wanted slides. They wanted to actually get copies of the slides. If things are interesting, people typically want slides or they're taking pictures of it. If they're not interesting, people tend to walk out. Now, on a positive note, we only had one person walk out in the middle of the session. They walked out early on because I set the expectation that this is what the session is about. And if you're in the wrong room, then there's a chance to go, and they were in the wrong room. So make sure you do that just from a housekeeping perspective, or remind people what session they're in before your session kicks off. So simple framework to get better at communication, to get better at having meetings. Who? Anticipate the objectives of our others, know what your objectives are, know what your desired next steps. I really like to have 3 desired next steps. So my 3 desired next steps for today were: number 1, that people filled out the feedback, gave me feedback. Number 2, that they shared feedback with the organizers of the event. So those are two big pieces: the feedback for me and feedback for the organizers. And then the third one was is that I would love to hear from people who were in the room how they applied the model that we talked about today, that model around simplifying the proposals that we're getting out inside our organizations to help justify the investment that we're needing to bring in things like emerging technology inside our organization. Thanks for joining me. Tactical Tuesday. The dog did not show up. It's a little bit after 9, so maybe he's winding down. He's off the clock. I'll see you tomorrow for Whiteboard Wednesday. Thank you and have an awesome evening.